Hi, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Unstoppable Mindset. And we have an unstoppable mindseted oriented sort of person today, Spider Saloff. Spider is a vocalist. She's a comedian. She is in Chicago, as I recall, but she
Yes.
has been to a variety of places. She is a very highly acclaimed vocalist, a singer. She sings and deals with a lot of the songs that I like the Great American Songbook, Gershwin, Irving Berlin, and other things like that. And she has a lot of accolades that come from any number of famous people who you've probably heard of. And so, in the course of the next hour or so, I'm sure we're going to hear about a bunch of that. But for now, Spider, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. We're really glad you're here.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you are most welcome. So, how did you get into doing acting, singing, and all the other things that you do?
Well, it started when I was a kid. I always loved music and, was so in love with the arts. But when I was 14, I came home and told my parents that I could get them tickets to the high school variety show. And they said, "What?" And I told them, "I'm in it. I'm going to be in it." And they said, "Well, doing what?" And I said, "Singing." And they were shocked. And I didn't tell them. I used to rehearse at my girlfriend's home because her family was all over it. They thought I was wonderful. And I knew my family would tell me that I couldn't do it. So, because it's just too foreign and too scary to them. So uh, I ended up performing at this variety show, and my parents were absolutely shocked. And one thing led to another, and then I met a theater director who worked at my school, and he was a professional guy from New York that they hired to come in to do a musical, and I was in it, and I ended up getting the opportunity to be in a summer stock company, and my parents let me go, which was amazing. I think they were just relieved to get me out of the house for the summer, but whatever it takes. But I certainly learned a lot, and I was very young for that experience, but it was so worth it. And then after I finished high school, I went to college for theater.
Hmm. Now, your parents are from Russia?
Oh, no, 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 no. No,
Okay,
my father's descendants are from Russia. That's where the name is from.
got it.
But they are, I think I am about 11 different nationalities. So we're real mutts. We are real mutts of the world.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Hmm.
So now we need to just clone that combination since obviously you sing well. We need to get that in other people. Well, just
Oh,
a
yeah.
just a thought.
Sounds good. Sounds
It
dangerous to me, actually.
I know it's either that or we're
There
going to have to
shouldn't be
get
more than one of me
more than
roaming
one
around
spider.
out
No, we can't have that. Well,
there.
either that or we get AI to imitate you, but we don't want to do that either.
Ooh.
We don't want to
Ooh,
do that
scary.
either.
Scary stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, so how did you encounter and come up with the name Spider?
I did not choose it. I never thought that my real name made any sense from the time I was a child. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And then I got the nickname when I was in college because I'm really a small person, but I have very long arms and legs.
Hmm.
And it was a nickname, and it just stuck with me. And then finally I surrendered to it as a professional name, and people don't forget it. They may not like me, but they don't forget the name. And then it just stuck, and it's been that way ever since.
How could somebody not like you?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody out there, but I would love to think everyone just adores me. But we'll see.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
it'll all go. So, where did you go to college?
I went to a college that doesn't exist anymore. Actually, now it is Rowan University. It's in New Jersey outside of Philadelphia. And it became Rowan University when it got the largest private donation in history but it was a state college called Glassboro State College, and it was a fine arts school at the time. There were several of my friends, including the conductor for The Lion King and Broadway people, all went to school there. And now it has no arts program at all. But part of our program, I did get to study at University of London too. So that was really exceptional. And it was a wonderful school, great opportunity. You know, it was outside of Philadelphia, close to New York. And now it's an engineering school for the most part. There are no fine arts there at all.
Well, that's too bad, but well.
Yeah, I know, but somebody's got to do the engineering, I guess.
Well, there's truth to that too.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen The Lion King live on Broadway?
I have never seen it, and it's
You've
like,
never seen
I've
it.
I've got to see it.
Yeah.
I've got to see it. It just never happened. I kept intending to go, and I never saw it. And I know people that played for it as well.
You've seen the movie.
No,
You haven't seen the movie
seen
either.
anything Lion King. I
Oh
need
my
to do it.
goodness.
I know.
Well,
I better. That's one of my goals by the end of the year. Let me see if I can see it.
well, I'll tell you my Lion King story.
I do.
My brother-in-law knew someone who knew some of the actors in Lion King, and he and his wife and their little girl, who at the time was like 3 or 4, were coming through New Jersey where we lived in Westfield, and we all arranged to go see The Lion King. It was a Wednesday afternoon. It was a matinee. And near the beginning, when Scar, the bad guy, meets the hyenas who he works with, they come on stage and they're growling and all sorts of things like that. Well, in the theater, the hyenas come from the back of the theater down the stairs, and they walk past everyone growling and making all these noises. Well, my wife was in a wheelchair her whole life. She was a T3 paraplegic. And when one of the hyenas came up next to her, because we were able to arrange for an accessible seat, which was right on the aisle, this hyena comes up right next to her and goes, "Roar." You've never seen a woman who is totally paralyzed suddenly literally jump up and almost walk out of the theater. It was just amazing. He shocked her completely, but it was so much fun. And of course, Alanya, the little girl, was just there with these big, huge eyes over all of this. But what Karen, my wife, told me later was that what was interesting about it was that when she was obviously watching all of this, and she said, you got totally used to the puppets being the animals they were. They didn't even look like puppets anymore. They were just the animals. And
that's exactly what I've heard about it. That it's like
it was fascinating.
You're completely swept away with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's cool. But yeah,
go.
you gotta go see The Lion King. It is absolutely worth it. The music is wonderful and all that.
Wow.
So we got to see it on Broadway, which was cool. Well, so you went to college, and then what did you do?
Well, when I got out of college, I, was doing theater, but I ended up in musicals because I sang. And my formal training really is acting. I did not train as a singer. I just started singing naturally when I was a teenager. And then I just did a ton of musicals. I was in musicals like forever. And, but I always loved jazz. And that was always in my back pocket. And then at one point, I really decided I wanted to pursue jazz while I was still in musical theater, because it was getting harder and harder to get roles, because this is in the late 80s, they wanted you to be a dancer as well. And that was not going to happen for me. So I really thought, I want to check out the whole nightclub scene, and cabaret, where you could produce your own show. And so I started to really pick the minds of the guys in the pit band. And I talked to all these pit musicians, and they would tell me about, places to go and how there were guys I met there that introduced me to other people that helped me to do my first demo, and then started working in clubs, and then that really changed everything for me.
So you got very much involved in in doing a lot of jazz.
Yeah, jazz and cabaret, and it was all small clubs, but then that was what got me major press attention.
Mm.
And then I started touring with a show that I co-wrote with a guy named Ricky Ritzel, who's from New York, and we did a show called 1938, and that was my first recording as well. And then just kept going from there, and that's how a lot of things happened. Was really just deciding to do my own thing and create my own world of performance.
So you're also known for doing something related in one way or another to comedy.
Well, yeah, I've always done comedic roles, and I can't say I have ever done stand-up,
Hmm.
but I may be getting close to it. I'm not sure, but I always involve a lot of comedic monologues in everything I do. Like if you see me at a jazz club, I will tell stories, and it's part of who I am is a lot of the comedy stuff. And crazy stories and telling stories about people, and doing imitations of people that I've met over the years and that kind of stuff. So it is part of my whole persona on stage.
Mm. What's your favorite musical that you've done?
Boy,
It's probably a toughie.
I did so many. I have to say, Guys and Dolls.
Okay.
Guys and Dolls. I was Adelaide in Guys and Dolls.
You were
and it was one
Adelaide.
of the best roles I've ever
Yeah.
done. It was really a good choice for me. And I have to say, I was in what, 4 productions of Fiddler on the Roof, and I've been 2 Seidels, 1 Java, and Frumacera. So,
Mm.
but I love that show. I think it's
Yeah.
magical, just
Oh,
magical.
it is. Have you ever
Yeah.
been in, now, I like Guys and Dolls, but my favorite, and it's just been that way for a long time, and I don't know why, was The Music Man. Were you ever in The Music Man?
I was, but there's no role in that for me. But I was one of the Piccolo ladies,
Oh,
and it is one of my favorite shows. Though I think it's a masterpiece. I love, love, love Music Man. I think it's just brilliant.
you don't think you could have done Eulalie Kopechny Shim?
I was too young to do it at the time.
Yeah. Well,
I could do it now.
there's always Marion.
No, I don't have the soprano chops for that. No, 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 no. Not unless
Okay.
they let me do it in Sutton Foster's keys.
Well,
I was thrilled that they took it down for her because I could actually do it in those keys. That would be great.
I saw it a couple of times on Broadway. Now I'm
Wow.
blanking out on the person. It was in, well, we saw it in like 2000 and 2001, and I'm trying to remember, I'm blanking out on the person who played Marion. She actually ended up getting Lou Gehrig's disease
Oh
and
my
passed
God.
away,
I don't know who
which
that
totally
was.
shocked us.
I'm drawing a blank. I don't know who.
Yeah, I'm blanking out on her name.
Wow.
I may think of it, but
Oh, forgive
she,
us. Forgive
she did
us.
a great job. But yeah, but there's nobody like Robert Preston to play Harold Hill anyway.
That movie is so beautiful. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Music Man is brilliant. It really is brilliant.
Well, that goes back to, you know, Mr. Meredith Wilson.
Yes, and I read his book. Do you know of his book called He Doesn't Know the Territory?
No, I'll have to see if I can
About
find
the
it.
writing and production of Music Man. It's
Oh,
brilliant. I love, love, love that book. And it's about all the trials of getting it produced and how he did. They did one of the one of the readings when they were trying to raise the money to do it. And Moss Hart Moss and Kitty Hart were there, and they hated it so much they walked out in the middle of it. And then opening night, Moss Hart was there, and he saw Meredith Willson in the lobby, and he shook his hand, and he said, "Great show, but you know what? You still haven't licked that book."
Oh gosh.
Because he was an outsider. I mean,
Yeah.
he wasn't part of the Broadway team, and
No.
the fact that he actually played with John Philip Sousa, like, what?
Yeah. Counts for something.
It was real deal, like real, like old timey marching band stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, then he
Amazing.
also did the unsinkable Molly Brown.
Yes, another great show.
Yeah.
Not produced very often, but another great show.
No, it's not. It's sort of sad. Oh well.
Oh.
But you've been very much involved with a lot of jazz and so on. Tell us about meeting the Gershwin family and your involvement with Gershwin, which he of course
Magical. It was
Oh, I bet.
truly a life-changing event for me. My partner and I, Ricky Ritzel and I, had been doing 1938, and then we decided to write this show that was called Porgy and Bess, a cabaret concert.
Oh boy.
And it was in New York, and a very powerful guy from ASCAP came to see it, and Michael Kirker. And he came to see it, and he said, "This show is brilliant." He goes, "But you guys are going to get shut down by the Gershwin family. So you need to call them and see if they'll give you permission." So I had the phone number for Leopold Godowsky III, who is the nephew of George and Ira. His mother is Frankie Gershwin, who was George and Ira's younger sister. And I was a wreck. My hands were shaking, and I called him on the phone, and he was very polite. He just had this incredibly mannered guy, it was really lovely. He goes, "Well, I don't see that we could allow Porgy and Bess be performed in a nightclub." And it wasn't like we were doing the show. We were just,
Right.
we were telling the story about how it was written and then just performing the songs as separate entities, but they were enfolding into the story. So I said, would you want to comment? Would you want to see it if we put it on a videotape? And he goes, "Oh, I don't know." He goes, "Let me think about it." So then I called him back right away. I had the nerve to call him back again. I said, "Well, would you come to see the show?" He said, "You know what? Would you and your partner be willing to come and perform it at my home in Connecticut?"
There you go.
And I'm like, what? So this whole thing got put together, and we went up to the Gershwins' home in Connecticut. We met Leopold and his fabulous wife, Elaine, and they said, we're having 40 close friends here for dinner. They were cooking dinner themselves, and it was this magical house in Connecticut. They had 40 industry people there. It was crazy. I mean, there were all these famous people there, and we did like, as he called it, a 30-minute musicale. We did highlights from the show in their living room by the grand piano. And I believe the piano had belonged to George, because Leopold is a classical pianist as well. So we did the show, and then we all had dinner, and this friendship started. So what evolved was they did let us do the show, but then my relationship continued with them. And when the Gershwin Centennial started in 1996, it was Ira's 100th birthday, 2 years before George's in 98. I became part of the Centennial presentation. So I got to tour with my Gershwin concert under their brand, and also record my Gershwin album with their brand on it. And it was the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and it was a huge, a huge mark in my career, and it opened a lot of doors for me. So wonderful, wonderful people.
One of my favorite pieces of all times, calling it a piece is probably not totally accurate. It's bigger than that. But one of my favorite things from classical music has always been Rhapsody in Blue. And I don't know why, but the very first time I heard it, I loved it, and I've enjoyed it ever since. I've heard the Boston Pops do it, and others do it. It's just one of those neat things I've just always loved.
I'm getting chills just talking about it because that was so groundbreaking at the time.
Mm-hmm.
When Paul Whiteman had the contest
Right.
of who was going to be able to cross the borders of jazz and classical. And you know who else was in that contest? Was Aaron Copland.
Oh my gosh.
Aaron Copland. And
Yeah.
he was always in competition with Gershwin.
Yeah.
And Gershwin won. And musically, that changed the whole concept of jazz. I mean, to be accepted in a classical arena, it was really remarkable what that piece did. Like, amazing.
I actually heard once the Paul Whiteman arrangement of Rhapsody in Blue. It was performed by a group. I don't even recall where, but it was outside. It was a little different, but it still was just so neat to hear.
He was the first person to hear it.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, Paul Whiteman was incredible, though. I mean, what a groundbreaking person he was artistically.
Right. Yeah, he did some amazing things.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I've got to mention, and I hope this doesn't make our interview too dated, but last night I saw the movie Blue Moon that is about Larry Hart.
Mm.
Oh my God.
I haven't seen that. I'm going to have to
It
find
just
it.
came out last week.
Oh, okay.
It's not going
No
to be
wonder I
in
haven't
theaters
seen it.
very often. It's
No.
absolutely gorgeous. And Ethan Hawke plays Larry Hart.
Mm.
It's beautiful and funny and heartbreaking. And the whole premise is Larry Hart has to go to opening night of Oklahoma.
Oh,
on
gosh.
Broadway. And how painful it is, and this whole cathartic thing he's going through. So the bulk of the it's more like a theater piece. The whole thing takes place at the bar at Sardi's when he's talking to the bartender and waiting for Rodgers and Hammerstein to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wowza. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And talk about, I don't know how they ever got that produced, because it's definitely a movie that's not going to appeal to everybody, but boy, is it brilliant. Wow. Loved
Well,
it.
hopefully it will come out in some place where I can watch it up here, and that'll be cool.
Yeah, and I think it's probably going to go to streaming pretty soon.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so you'll have a lot of opportunities. But I really was happy to go to the theater and see it. But wow. And people in the audience were laughing at all the jokes. They were getting all the sly comments of Larry Hart. Like, wow. Witty, witty, witty. Just brilliant. Just brilliant.
Well, your whole Gershwin relationship obviously is pretty significant. You even did some Gershwin concerts in Russia?
Yes. Oh, yes. That was why I went to Russia. They were having a Gershwin centennial in St. Petersburg in 1998 because that is the origins of the Gershwin family. They are from St. Petersburg. And so I was hired with my pianist to go to St. Petersburg and do, we were there for 7 days, and I think we did like 5 concerts, and it was amazing to be there because this was when Russia was getting good. This was like the good part. and
Yeah.
it still was scary. It was scary. We stayed in this really creepy hotel that was like a government hotel, and the rooms were bugged. And in the hallways, there were padded walls, like where they could pull these panels out, and there was all kinds of wiring in there,
Mm.
bugging and strange stuff. The concert hall was absolutely magical. It was an old concert hall, and people went crazy. And when I sang the song Vodka, which is an oddity by Gershwin, by Herbert Stothard, Otto Harbach, Oscar Hammerstein, and George Gershwin wrote this crazy song called Vodka.
Mm.
And when I did the song, people stood on their chairs and screamed. The Russians just loved the concert. The audiences couldn't have been better, and the people that ran the organization couldn't have been weirder. It was very strange. And when we went to leave, the guy that booked us and me and my pianist, they took our passports, and we had to go to a little room where they said that our visas were expired, and we had to pay money to get out of there. And they were mad at the guy that was our manager because he sassed them. And anyway, we had to wait. We were afraid we were going to miss the plane. And then finally they came out with like a little tape from an adding machine. And they said, you have to pay $58.23 American. So they charged us this $58, and we paid it and ran to get on the plane. And I'm like, I was never so scared in my life.
How bad.
I didn't know what they were going to do, but it was an experience, and it was thrilling and beautiful, but don't think I'm going back to Russia again.
Not in the near term.
Yeah. And then that's when all these people said, my name is Saloff. You are my cousin. I come home with you. Like, there were so many people with my name, because in this country there aren't that many Saloffs. My family is pretty small, and occasionally I'll meet a Saloff, but they're usually rabbis, and it's like there aren't that many of us out there. But it was an amazing experience. Loved it.
Now, did you, when you were over there, sing any of the songs or anything in Russian, or did that matter?
Oh no. That's
You didn't do that, huh?
I'm not. No, I'm good at doing accents, and sometimes I will learn to say, like I would learn a little bit of French to get by, but then they would start asking me questions, and I didn't know what they were saying, and then they thought I was just being a jerk, like I'm pretending I don't understand them or something. But it was, no, I don't speak. I can barely handle English, but
I didn't know whether you might have tried to learn one of the songs just for fun.
No, there wasn't time. This went together so fast. I think we only had like 2 weeks notice. They had to rush the visas, and we had passports in order, but it was a lot of legal red tape.
But that's why it cost $58.33 to get out.
Yes, I don't know what. Like, I don't know. Very crazy.
One of those things.
Oh yeah.
Well, at least it was affordable.
Well, it was exciting. I mean, everything was paid for. But this was another weird thing. They paid us in cash, American dollars, and I had to hide it in my boot.
Oh, okay.
I had to put it inside the sole of my boot when I left.
Wow.
Yeah, it was creepy all the way down the line. It was very strange.
Oh well.
Yeah. There you go.
Things happen.
Yeah, I'm very, very, very fortunate that I got to do it.
Yeah, it's obviously a wonderful memory, and
yeah, oh yeah,
one of those things that you'll always treasure.
You bet.
Well, so when did you move to Chicago?
Oh well, when I started to get my feet wet in New York, in the nightclub scene and the jazz scene, I got some really fabulous reviews, including the New York Times.
Mm.
And there was a guy from Chicago who I met through the great Julie Wilson, and his name was Bill Allen, and he was partners with Bobby Short.
Mm.
And he opened this really crazy club in Chicago, very famous, called the Gold Star Sardine Bar. And both Liza Minnelli had played there, the Basie band. He squeezed the Basie band in there, but it was this tiny little place right in downtown Chicago. And it was really wild. And a lot of people had played there. Tony Bennett had played there, and Liza. And I kind of was courting the room. I kept talking to him. He had found my press kit. I think he had been sent 3 different press kits, and we don't know which one he opened. And he called me, and we kept this ongoing conversation about coming out to do performance there. And then finally, he decided to bring me out for New Year's Eve.
Mm.
And my husband and I flew out, and it was just, we had a couple of friends here in Chicago that we visited, but we didn't know anybody here. I'd never been to Chicago, but it was magical. And then he said, well, I'm going to have you back. I'm going to have you back. And then I didn't hear from him. And finally, the following September, he asked if I could come and play for a month. And I had almost no warning because he was very impulsive and really crazy. So he asked me to come out for a month, and I did. They put me up in a hotel, and I played with, the musicians were magical. People were so great. And so I played for a month, and then he said, what would you think about moving here? And my husband and I were both excited about it. Then we didn't hear anything from him. And then right after, what was the first week of February, the following year, he calls me up and said, could you move here? And I'm like, I guess so. Why? He goes, well, I'll book you here for a year, and we'll arrange to get an apartment, and can you start like next week?
Oh, gosh.
So I did it. I came out, and then my husband came out. We took a sublet on an apartment right downtown in Chicago, sight unseen. We moved here with our cat, and the rest was history. I ended up having the best. Nobody has a gig for a year.
Yeah.
And hired partially by the only person that had a gig forever, who was Bobby Short.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I had met Bobby Short in New York, and he kind of gave Bill the okay. He liked me. And then I met Tony Bennett there, and Liza interrupted my show one night and crawled over the balcony onto the stage, and it was magical. There were lines around the block, and I was courted by the press in Chicago like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was magical. So when my run was up there, I started working at other clubs, and also I started touring at concert tours of my shows, like the Gershwin show, and started to tour. So it just became another life for me. But I'm in Chicago forever, as far as I'm concerned. I adore it here. I just love it.
So when did you move there?
The beginning of '92.
Okay. All right. So when Liza invaded the stage, did you guys sing together?
No. This is what happened. I had met Liza. I was still living in New York, and I was friends with Billy Stritch, who was Liza's musical director.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a friend of mine, and he introduced me to Liza, and because he was conducting that big show she did at Radio City Music Hall. That was a tribute to Vincent Minnelli.
Right.
And she did this spectacular show at Radio City, and Billy was musical directing, and that's when they really became partners. And he introduced me to Liza, and she was just doll, one of
Hmm.
the nicest, coolest people in show business. So I met her and she was really kind to me, very friendly, very sweet. And so they were playing at the Chicago Theater. Liza was doing her one woman show, and it was closing this particular Saturday that I was at the Gold Star. And I had sent Billy a note to come by when they were done. So I'm doing the second set, and then Crazy Bill Allen at the break, he goes, okay, people are going to come in here. Joe Pesci is going to come in, and he's going to come up and meet you. And I'm like, Joe Pesci was doing a movie here, and his gangster double used to come in and see me at the Gold Star. So anyway, the break comes, I'm on stage, and all of a sudden the door opens and they come in. And it was Billy and Liza and Joe Pesci.
Mm.
And Joe Pesci comes up on stage with Billy, and my band kind of crawls off the stage because by now there's about, I don't know, 200 people packed in a 70-person room. And people are coming out of the woodwork. They're like sitting on top of the bar, and I can't even get off the stage. And Joe Pesci leans down. And he's like, hey, honey, my double, he thinks you're great. He goes, yeah, we're going to do some songs now. And I'm like, okay. So I sat there, and Billy came up and played. The bass player was there with them. Joe Pesci got up and sang. He was adorable. And then Liza is sitting right by this, they called it the opera box. There was a big, like, private table that was right next to the stage. She crawls over the bar onto the stage, and people are just screaming. It was absolutely nuts. And she did like 3 songs, and she was losing her voice because she had just done a killer thing at the Chicago Theater, and she was really like raspy. She did it anyway, and she ended with New York, New York, and people were like screaming. It was just bonkers. It was bonkers. And so that's what the Gold Star was like. It was just a crazy place, and you didn't know who was going to come in the door, who was going to interrupt your show. you just didn't know.
Yeah, and they even had the Count Basie Orchestra there, and
that was
how'd they fit him in?
They couldn't fit them. It was nuts. It was like a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
And the band was all stuffed in there, and there were a few people that could get in the room, but people were standing in the hallway to hear the Basie band. This is way before my time.
Yeah.
That was like in the early 80s when they opened, and they were way crazier than when I came.
You settled them down, did you?
No. But well, I was there for a year, and then the following year, I went back a few times on Saturdays, and then Bill told Jeremy Kahn and I that we were going to be the regular actor because they were always on the verge of closing. They wouldn't have any liquor, and somebody would be coming in the back door with liquor because they didn't pay their liquor bill, and he was in a lawsuit. And anyway, they told us that he goes, yeah, call me on Tuesday, and we're gonna get all the details straightened out. You guys are gonna be regular here. Tuesday came, and there were chains on the door.
Oh gosh.
And that was the end of it. It ended. And it was a magical time, but there were a lot of problems, a lot of legal problems going on.
I met Liza Minnelli once. It was the second or third time I was interviewed by Larry King, and she was going to perform on the show as well. But it was after September 11th, and so I got to meet her, and that was about it. But I did get to meet her, which was fun.
How exciting!
It was fun.
How exciting!
And every time we walked out after the interviews, there were lots of photographers outside. Everyone was taking pictures, and we had to put up with all that. But I guess it provided a lot of visibility. But it was kind of fun to be able to do that.
How cool! I never met Larry King. I knew a lot of people that were on his show, but Well, how exciting that you did it twice.
Well, actually, we there were 5 interviews with Larry. The first one was right after September 11th. It was on the 14th. And then there was another one. There was either one or two more. I think there was one more in November of 2001. And then on the anniversary in 2002 was the third, but there were 5 altogether. And during one of them, and I think it was the one on the anniversary or in 2002, but I have to go back and see if I can research it. But anyway, Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer were there. Lisa Beamer, Todd Beamer's wife. Todd's the guy who said, "Let's roll" on Flight 93 when they took over the plane again and got it in a crash in Shanksville.
Wow.
And Queen Noor was there. So
Who? I'm sorry?
Queen Noor, who was the Queen of Jordan.
Oh, wow.
And she and Roselle had a thing for a while. Roselle was my guide dog at the time, so they visited. It was kind of fun.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was interesting. But as I say, then we did meet Liza briefly, and that was kind of fun.
She's a doll. She's a doll.
Oh yeah.
What a great person. Yeah. Lovely.
Well, so I was looking at all the things that you sent me, and I noticed Tony Bennett. I got to meet Tony Bennett once. We were on Regis and Kelly Live in November of 2001, and I was sitting there, and I heard that Tony Bennett was going to be on the show, and suddenly he comes over and he says, "Hey, I'm Tony Bennett. Good to meet you. I've heard about you." And so we chatted for a while. And he and Roselle had a thing too. So that was good.
Oh, that Roselle. Oh, but yeah, I met him at the Gold Star, and because he had played there several times, as a feature act, and he was in town to do something. Maybe it was at the Chicago Theater as well, but he came in, hanging out in his white dinner jacket, absolutely charming, and he sat down and talked to me between sets, and it's like talking to your uncle. Like, he's like, "Yeah, what do you think of this weather here in Chicago?" And it was like just the friendliest, most laid back, cool guy. And I've seen him perform several times. I adored him.
I regret I never got to see him live, other than hearing him on Regis and Kelly. He did a New York State of Mind.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Wow.
He's a very soft-spoken guy, but when he can sing, he could belt it out.
And he sang the same forever. Like, that's my idols are. I want to sound the same forever, and I have the two most remarkable preserved voices were Ella Fitzgerald and Mel Torme. Both of them, they had chops forever. Like that, they were just very, very careful and smart about the way they use their voices.
Yeah. Johnny Mathis lasted a long time. I don't know what he sounds like.
He just sounded the same forever.
Yeah.
Killer. Woohoo. Wow. And I never got to see him live, but I know people that did. And I mean, not that long ago, and they were blown away. Like just killer. Yep. Amazing.
Yeah, another amazing guy. Well, so have you ever had any real kind of challenges and sort of negative things that have happened to you in your life? You've obviously been very successful and all that, but unstoppability oftentimes happens when you have a challenge.
Oh, yes. Well, small things, challenges. I mean, like, the worst though was when I was very young, a young actress. I got swept away by a guy that was a director. He was 10 years older than me, and I ended up in a really terrible abusive relationship for years and didn't know how to get out. And I ended up doing a 6-part I have a YouTube channel, and this was 2 years ago. I did a 6-part series called Learning to Love You, and it was the very subject of what happens in abusive relationships and why people stay and why they are convinced that they can't live without the person. They're convinced that they're powerless. They are told they have to depend on this person, and they're very afraid.
Hmm.
And I I was so lucky to break away from there and get out. And when I got out, I mean, I this guy completely left me with no money, no home, no job, and I was so ashamed to tell my family. I didn't tell them till months after it had happened. And I went, trying to get more work as an actress. I worked as a bartender in a comedy club, and that's what I had a lot of comedian friends because of that era. And my friends and eventually my family really helped me to get out of it, but I had to be independent through the whole thing.
Hmm.
My first place I was homeless for 6 months, and I would go around on buses going between wherever and Atlantic City because the casinos were there. So I
Hmm.
could get a free ride to Atlantic City and then get a free bus back to New York. I could get a bus back to Philadelphia. I could go around on these buses and just stay at people's houses a couple
Mm.
of nights a week, and not having a place to live. It was horrible. So when I finally moved somewhere, I moved in with an actor friend of mine who had just got out of his abusive
Mm.
relationship. And I slept on the floor of an attic for like the first 6 months that I was living on my own. And I was so grateful to have that floor. And I just kept saying every night before I went to bed, it gets better from here. It's going up. It's
Yeah.
going up. And it did. It did. It's remarkable. It's remarkable.
What did you learn from that relationship?
Beware of predators.
Oh,
I really never lose sight that you're the person in charge.
yeah.
You are the person in charge of your life, and you're the only one that's allowed to do that. And you don't bend to anybody that's asking you to do anything too far. You have to be very skeptical about who's getting close to you. And I was married long after that. I was married to my husband, and he passed away
Oh,
16 years ago.
gosh.
And uh, but there's been a lot of strange loss and trauma, but
Yeah.
I I I am blessed with resilience. And I have to say, the thing that keeps me steady, music.
Yeah.
Music, music and beauty and art can carry me through anything. And I'm surrounded by that, and the best friends in the world. Oh man, and my family and my friends are amazing, and I'm very fortunate. Very fortunate.
How long were you married before he passed away?
We would have been married 17 years.
Ah,
Yeah.
my wife and I were married 40 years. She passed away in November of 2022.
Oh
And
wow, I'm sorry.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I always say when I tell that to anybody that she's watching from somewhere, and if I misbehave, I'm going to hear about it. So I don't even chase the girls. I also point out that they're not chasing me, so it's okay. But so many wonderful memories after 40 years, and
Yeah.
people say, "Well, are you going to move on?" And I say, "No, I'll never move on. I'll move forward, but I won't move on. I don't want to forget, but I'll move
Oh,
forward."
that's an interesting twist of words there. Yeah. No, I mean, I have moved. My life has become actually way better since
Hmm.
my husband passed. I was dealing with a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
he was dealing with severe mental illness,
Mm.
and it was very hard near the end. And my life is beautiful now, and I I'm just I feel like everything is new all the time, and I don't really have any close relationships in romantic relationships. I tried a couple since he passed, but I don't I don't think I'm good at it.
Well,
I'm not good at it. I do better on my own. I'm much better on my own.
yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. And as I said, it'll be 3 years in 2 weeks for me. And
Wow.
I when we got married, we had both lived alone. And when she passed, it wasn't totally all of a sudden. So I had some time to prepare, but it
Yeah.
it has worked out pretty well. And so now I have a dog and a cat who keep me honest. The cat
Oh,
especially.
you have a cat too.
Oh, we have a cat. Yeah, her name is
Oh,
Stitch, and she likes to be petted while she eats, and she'll yell at me until I come and pet her while she's eating. And when I travel somewhere to speak and I come home, I hear about it for quite a while. How could I ever do that? But she's not left alone. I've got somebody who comes in
but she has to
and
give you
helps.
what for when you
Well,
come.
she does. That's her
Yeah,
obligation. Just ask her.
absolutely. Yeah.
And how come you took that dog with you and not me? It's a guide dog. So,
This is not fair.
yeah.
That is too
Yeah.
funny.
Well, the other side of it is I don't want her to ever get the idea that she can go out of the house. She developed on
Oh,
her own a fear of going outside. She went out into our garage once when we first moved in here, and I kept calling her. She wouldn't come in, so I turned the lights off and I closed the door. And 10 seconds later, she's at the door wanting in, and so she doesn't try to go out. So I really feel blessed that she
oh,
stays
that's
in the
good.
house. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. 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 I had a cat that never wanted to go near the door either because he had been an alley cat. And
Mm,
everything outside that door was the alley. So it was like, I'm
mm.
not going back there. Yeah, he also he was a big fat house cat, like just wanted to lay around and luxuriate and eat. And, he was really a sweetie. But I don't
Stitch.
have pets anymore because I leave too often.
Yeah, you travel a lot. Well,
It's a
um,
lot.
at least I have people to help take care of Stitch when I'm not here, so
That's
it does work
terrific.
out.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you? So with all the things that you've been doing and singing and so on, do you teach voice to people?
I do. I've taught at a school. I didn't start teaching till I moved to Chicago. And this guy named David Bloom, he's kind of a Chicago icon. He's had a jazz school in Chicago for years. And he asked me to teach at the school about a year after I moved to Chicago. And I said, I don't know how to teach. He said, yes, you do. You just
Yeah.
teach what you know. And I started teaching, and then I did courses there for a long time. I met a lot of people, and I've had wonderful students. And I still work there on occasion when we have a course, but I teach privately now. And I just love it so much. I mean, I learn so much from my students all the time. They're just amazing, and they're all different voices, all different age groups, all different reasons why they want to sing. But it's one of the joys of my life are
Mm.
those voice students. They're fantastic, and I adore teaching voice. And I'm really a coach. I teach performance and coaching, and it's not so much technique. I do some technique, but mostly it's working with what the singer has to offer.
I like the way you put it, though, that you learn so much from students. I think the day we stop learning, the day we become useless. We always need to learn. Learning and
Oh,
life is
that's
all
what
about
life is
learning.
about every
Yeah,
day.
it's all
Every
about
day.
learning.
You bet. It's exciting. It keeps you ticking.
It does. It's so much fun, and it's like the internet. I regard it as a wonderful treasure trove. There's always neat stuff to learn, so I don't worry about the so-called
I
dark
do
web and all
too.
that.
And I
It's
didn't know that I would learn as much as I did about, the internet and the things COVID really, well, I always had a website. I had a guy that became my webmaster that heard me on
Hmm.
the radio, and like I always was connected with it, but to the extent that I learned how to produce videos, that all happened during COVID.
Mm,
'Cause I really thought I was never going to be performing again live. You didn't know, that talk,
yeah,
it was just such a weird world all of a sudden.
it was.
But learning to adapt, that was what we all learned from COVID, was adapting and being open to new experiences. That was a major, major factor of the whole thing.
And living alone, you have to cook your own food and like
Oh,
it.
I've always cooked my own food. Oh my
Yeah,
God, do I love to cook.
yeah.
I cook every day for myself. I love cooking and throwing parties.
I must be a little bit lazy. I enjoy cooking, but when Karen was here, we shared the responsibility, and it's a lot to cook for one person. So I don't do as much of it as I used to. But
I
I don't
probably,
suffer. I will point that out.
suffer. No, but I cook for myself
Hmm.
every day. I cook almost everything I eat. The
Hmm.
only time I don't cook for myself is when somebody magically takes me to dinner, or I go to somebody's house. I've got a lot of friends, so I get to eat at other people's houses and go
There
out
you
to
go.
restaurants. But I do and look forward to cooking for
Yeah.
myself. I just can't wait to see, oh, what am I going to have today? I get excited about it. It's a joy for me.
I cook more easy meals, but I also do my own cooking. I mean, I don't go out very often, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoy being home. I enjoy being home with a puppy and a kitty and listening
Oh,
to the radio and all that sort of stuff. So I hear you.
fabulous. Fabulous.
So you did some work on radio series?
Oh, yes. One of actually, the very first pianist that I worked with at the Gold Star Sardine Bar is a guy named Brad Williams, and we've been friends for years. And then at one point, this guy that was a big fan of mine, Bill Sheldon, he was an way older fellow. The three of us created a radio series that's called Words and Music. That's about the American Songbook, and we
Mm,
were on the air for 2.5 years. We were part of NPR, and we were syndicated internationally all through our classical station here in Chicago, WFMT. And it was the most challenging but wonderful time to crank those shows out. We never worked so hard as we did for that show,
mm.
but those are still out there, and the copies of that show are available on CD. People can purchase them, and you can learn about that on my website too.
I have been collecting old radio shows since well, let's see, probably 1968, and have
Wow.
collected a bunch. And I'm also part of the radio enthusiast of Puget Sound. So we recreate programs every year. So
Oh, really? Wow.
I wasn't able to be at the one that they did up in Washington State in September because I was speaking somewhere. But there's going to be another one around, well, at Christmas. It's actually going to be the fifth, fourth, fifth, and sixth, I think it is, of December. We're going to recreate something like 12 or 13 different shows, and that's a lot of fun.
Wowza. What are the
Yeah.
shows like? What is it comprised of? Is it
So
live performance or recordings, or what is it?
no, we're actually going to perform live up in Washington, and people are invited to come and be in the audience, and they'll also be broadcast on yesterdayyusa.com and yesterdayyusa.net, whichever you go to. Yesterday
Yeah.
USA is a network. It's got a red network and a blue network, just like NBC used to have, and they play old radio shows and a lot of interviews with people. And so there's still some old radio actors who will be there as part
How
of it.
cool.
Beverly, Carolyn Grimes, who played Zuzu in It's a Wonderful Life, will be there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Beverly Washburn, who was on the Jack Benny Show, and there'll be other people, and it's kind of neat. And Larry Albert, who will be doing some of the voices, and was Harry Niles for years and still is, I guess. on NPR and so on. But it's really fun.
That's excellent. What a blast.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. Well, have a happy holidays with that
It'll
and
be
everything
enjoyable.
else. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for being here. How do people reach out to you if they'd like to
You
reach out, or if you want them
visit my
to?
website, spiderjazz.com, and you can find everything and too much information about me. And if you want to get in touch with me directly, write to my email address, spiderjazz@gmail.com.
Makes it easy.
And maybe you can take private lessons because I teach on Zoom.
Ah, there you go.
Meow. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for being here. And I want to thank you all for listening today and watching, whichever you do, or both. Love to hear your thoughts about our conversation. Feel free to email me, michaelhi@accessibe.com. That's michaelhi@accessibe, accessibe.com. Wherever you're monitoring us today, please give us a 5-star rating and please give us a review. We love your reviews. We appreciate your input. If you can think of anyone who you think ought to be a guest, and if you listening out there want to be a guest, please reach out to me. We're always looking for more people to come on the podcast. We met Spider through someone else who has been on the podcast as well. And Spider, if you know anyone who you think ought to be a guest,
Yep.
love to hear from you.
I got some ideas.
Cool. Well, I want to once again thank you for being here. This has been absolutely fun.
Thank you, Michael. What a blast. I'll be talking to you soon.
If you're ready to go deeper into the ideas that shape how we see ourselves and others, I have a free gift for you. Head over to michaelhingson.com and download my free ebook, Blinded by Fear. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep choosing to live with an unstoppable mindset.